Hello everybody, we're going to talk about Starfield again. Yes, I know Starfield, but something came up. So there's a few topics I want to just go over. And one of them's disappearing from my mind as we speak. That was it, yeah. Internal locations, procedural generated planets, that kind of thing. Now, we've covered procedural generated planets and what I expect would happen in previous videos, and an interview with one of the channels online. I think it's a funny thing about X something, I can't remember, but they were interviewing Todd Howard and they asked him a few questions about all these things, and I found his answers to be quite interesting, so we're going to go over it now. First of all, let's talk about internal locations. A really interesting point for me was when I was making Kvatch, I realised the inside of Kvatch was like long and narrow going back, but the castle itself was square. It didn't match the internals, and most of the other locations didn't either. So I made a few videos about it, left a few comments, had a bit of a moan about it. Skyrim came along, suddenly most of the internals matched the externals. Bethesda stopped making that mistake. And again, in Starfield, they're basically following the same path. They're not making that same mistake. And there's a thing you can see in the ships where you design a ship out something at the side, then a room will appear at that side. So they're being more realistic in that way. That's not a mistake they've made since Oblivion. And I think it proves that even as far back as Oblivion, to Bethesda were listening to what fans had to say. It's a shame they didn't listen about the nav mesh bug, but because that lasted for 3 games in the end. It only got fixed in Skyrim, and it started in Fallout 3. But they do listen, so it was quite good to see that change. The other thing is they talk about companions and stuff like that, and robots and ships and stuff. And they said, "Can you have a robot crew?" And Todd goes, "Yeah, well, kind of." And I'm thinking to myself, it's just that roster, isn't it, or whatever his name is. You can take him as a companion, and if you're on the ship on your own with him, then technically you've got an all robot crew, haven't you? That's what he's talking about. I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about, because technically he's not wrong, is he? But you're not gonna get like a crew full of Cylons or anything like that. So yeah, but I've seen him dodge that question a few times and go down the kind of route. And also when he's talking about being scanned and what happens next, he goes, "You'll have to find out, won't you?" I think we can predict it's going to be a fight in it unless you surrender, and then you get put in jail for so long and then released, like you do in all games he's made. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe they'll confiscate your goods that you're carrying. But anyhow, let's move on to procedurally generated worlds. We talked about how they wrap around certain sections around the planet to create the planet. Some of them might be handcrafted areas that they place in particular points. Well, he's been talking about that, and that's exactly what they're doing. This is all the videos we spoke about in these procedurally generated worlds going back over a year now were actually spot on. This is exactly what they've been doing. It didn't require any crystal ball on my part, just a bit of knowledge on how Bethesda make their games, and I was able to just say, yeah, it's got to be this way. Given what we were talking about, it just confirmed it every step of the way, made it sound more and more certain. Todd Howard now confirmed exactly what I was saying was true. So you can go back through those videos, look at them, and they're still relevant. Right, so yeah. But when we talk about handcrafted areas and things like that, says you need to look at the big picture here, because he added a bit more detail to the planets. Like when you go play No Man's Sky, you go on a radiation planet. You need shields, for radiation shields. Heat, same thing. Cold, same thing. Well, apparently that is a feature that Bethesda have adopted into their games as well. So some of these planets will require your spacesuit to be upgraded in certain ways, so you can actually land on that planet and not suffer any damage. So you can imagine land on the planet, dash out, bit of mining, dash in again, heal yourself up until you get the right upgrades. Well, it's going to be a little bit like that. So you've got the procedural world, then you've got the planets and the atmospheres and things like that, which will make it all feel different. They also said, depending on the planet, there'd be more handcrafted locations on it. So you might have a procedurally generated world with random stuff, but then a handcrafted location like that pirate base we see right at the very beginning, that is a handcrafted location, and therefore that is what they'd be talking about. Or maybe mines or things like that where you can go down and explore. But he's mentioning it quite often now that you land and you explore the area around where you land. Now, I'm beginning to think that maybe the whole planet isn't generated, just the area you land on. If that's true, then the only way to literally generate the whole planet would be to explore the whole planet. And the only way to do that is using your jetpack. The jetpack itself is your only form of travel, apparently, across planet surfaces. There are no vehicles, according to Todd Howard. So if you're having to jetpack around the planet, it'll take you a long time to jetpack around a barren planet, which means you're not going to do it, and they know that. They know you're not going to do that. So most of that planet will remain unexplored. So I'm beginning to think, right, that they'll only spawn things in a location after you've landed. That's what I'm thinking. I might be wrong. This is taking the idea what we talked about in other videos a bit further. But if you think about it, spawning something on a planet after you've landed means if they add, there's like DLCs later that add more variety, then you can go back to the same planet, land, and then there's something new would be spawned in a spot you've never visited before. So the game could be constantly changing. The same thing could happen with mods doing the same thing. It would randomly pick something for an area that you've never been to. I would have think you get a certain amount of pop-in effects though if that's going to happen. But it depends on the draw distance and how far they allow you to see. Because if they think, well, this is a barren planet, so we need to have the draw distance quite far, then they could technically draw or spawn things 2 or 3 tiles away. Because it's a barren planet, there wouldn't be that much on screen to slow the frame rate down. So they could do that. And if they did that on a planet by planet basis, then the more barren the planet, the further you could see. And if you're on a planet with life, with trees, the trees would obstruct your view anyway. You wouldn't necessarily see what was coming up. Plus they can always stick it down in a hole so you couldn't see it until you crested a rim. But that would make it very hard to see from the ground, but easy to see from the air. Well, easier to see from the air. That's what I'm thinking anyway. But the kind of handcrafted locations could be anything from alien temples to cities, settlements, mines, outposts, your own base. I mean, exactly what we were talking about in previous videos. This is the direction they might have taken. This is the direction I think they've taken, and I don't see it being a bad thing. It does mean that if you want to fully explore a planet to uncover all its secrets, you've got quite a bit of walking to do. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think, because I found this bit of a revelation from Todd to be quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I've got a pretty good idea how the game would play out anyway, and I've had that for over a year now because I know Bethesda quite well. I'm surprised by some things, not surprised by others, if you know what I mean. So far they've been true to their own, true to themselves. Bethesda haven't surprised me as much as maybe some people. Because, I mean, let's face it, I modded their games quite heavily. I know their engine works. So, it's not hard to fill in the gaps. Right, anyway, says, you let me know what you think about this, because I do think the procedurally generated area has it has the potential to make the world feel more alive and interesting, because you could randomly generate content every time you visit a new location, and each location on a planet might feel a bit different as well as the planets themselves. Although I do think they'll be picking from a list for that planet and then another list for a different planet. They might even have a separate level list for each planet, so each planet might have its own list, 1,000 lists, saying spawn this on this planet, spawn that on that planet, which means individual planets might be able to be customised by modders. So yes, the planet's 6th on the left and 5 light years out. We're going to make that a bug planet. You knew how to get that in there somewhere. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one, and post your comments below.